help with an asterisk. Why doctors trying to help opioid addicts are hitting a hurdle getting a helpful treatment. Are we taking the right approach when it comes to jail and mental illness? A group from Colorado found a program that might help in Florida. Digital driver's licenses. Businesses can start accepting them on Sunday, but will they? And the day after Turkey Day, hope you're enjoying some leftovers right now, reminiscing about holiday fails. Speaking of leftovers, I'm in for Kyle next. It's an oasis for opioid addiction as the health crisis continues to envelop more of our state. A drug that could help, but is hard to prescribe. Doctors are trying, but they can't get the green light. Our Anschutz Roy is here or heard about a dangerous irony while learning about a program at CU Anschutz.
Even if doctors want to help, they have to get the okay from the feds first when it comes to medication-assisted treatment and buprenorphine, even though doctors at CU Anschutz say it's considered one of the best ways to treat addiction. Buprenorphine is an opioid used to treat opioid addiction.
That's taking away the cravings, but you're not having some of the other effects that you might expect from a full opioid agonist. You're not having the same levels of euphoria or sedation, those kinds of things.
After med school, doctors have to go through at least 8 hours of training to get a waiver from the feds before they can prescribe buprenorphine. That training is even longer for nurses and physician assistants, and the issue is time.
The number of hours required is a lot higher. It's 24 hours.
It's a hurdle doctors don't have to cross when they prescribe pills like oxycodone.
You don't have to complete this kind of training in order to prescribe the medications that often get people into a spot where they need this medication.
Now CU Anschutz is using nearly $500,000 from the feds to set up a training program for future doctors, nurses, and physician assistants so they can get the waiver before graduating instead of after. They hope that gets rid of a hurdle so there will be more doctors and providers who can help in Colorado, especially since roughly half the counties in the state don't have someone who can provide medication-assisted treatment. So buprenorphine is considered a much safer option, even though it is an opioid, but it has to be used properly. And an important part of medication-assisted treatment is behavioral therapy. So we're talking about a much more holistic approach to it. And while doctors are saying, yes, this is very effective, of course, it doesn't have a 100% success rate either for everyone.
So why is it so closely regulated?
Yeah, so this was approved back in the early 2000s by the federal government, and it was the first kind of medication that doctors could be prescribing right out of their offices. But there was a little bit of hesitancy around using this medication in this capacity. So that's when you started to see that added layer of training, which has stuck around now for almost 2 decades.
Anschutz Roy, you are on top of this topic. Thank you. We appreciate it. Highs in the 20s and a full day of fog. The fog is clearing, but the wind will rush in and throw around new and old snow that's hanging around. Gusts blowing just as fast as your family and friends who tore through your Thanksgiving feast and took off just as fast to avoid the cleanup. Thanks, but no thanks.
I mean, it's just happening, right? So we're going to deal with it. We are looking at low visibility tonight. Less than half a mile of visibility here around the Denver metro area that continues into northeastern Colorado, part of that huge system that brought in some of that snow and ice that we've already seen this evening. Snow continues in our mountains and will stay up there through the weekend. Here in Denver, no advisories, no warnings for us, but those high wind warnings that are surrounding the metro area with this system are going to mean also some strong winds for the Denver area. 40-mile-per-hour gusts for us doesn't put us in the warning, but just outside the city, we'll see up to 80-mile-per-hour gusts. A huge system extends all the way up into the upper Midwest, could bring about another half an inch to an inch of snow here to town before tonight is done. Any snow that falls will be done by 10 o'clock. And then in the mountains, up to a foot of snow is possible along the Continental Divide, 1.5 feet for places like Vail and Crested Butte, 2 to 4 feet for those southwest San Juans. The wind is the bigger story. 40-mile-per-hour gusts will be possible in and around town throughout tonight and into tomorrow morning. They will not let up until tomorrow afternoon. Out to our west, they could be 90-mile-per-hour gusts that hit our foothills with 80-mile-per-hour gusts up near Fort Collins and Greeley. So we get really windy tonight. The snow wraps up. Lows will be in the 20s. Then tomorrow, 38. Gusts continue. They finally calm down Saturday night. So Sunday, 39. We'll have lots of sunshine. And we might actually get some snow melt around at least the Denver area, Steve. Next week, highs will be in the upper 40s and low 50s.
We could use that on the roads. Thank you, Becky.
You bet.
So the headache in the mountains should be easing up right about now. CDOT expected to have the westbound lanes of I-70 opened up by 6 o'clock. They've been closed since a little after 8 this morning because of some sliding rock. The eastbound side of the highway was closed too, but it reopened at about 3 o'clock. The most Colorado thing we saw today is especially appropriate for this week. Parking spaces are even harder to find with the snow that's still piled up in the Denver metro area. But no lines crossed here. This is a bigger truck too. So the driver took the extra time to back into this space. Pretty impressive. Next viewer named David took this at Southlands Mall. Those rear tires must have been more than a foot higher than the snow. Send your most Colorado pictures to next@9news.com or get our attention with the hashtag #HeyNext. Did you get your digital driver's license yet? You know, you can start using it on Sunday, kinda. Digital versions of your ID are available on the My Colorado mobile app. So the state's encouraging businesses to start accepting them. As for now, it sounds like a lot of just encouragement, really. For now, the cops aren't accepting them. We also talked to the Colorado Restaurant Association. Sounds like it'll be a while before restaurants and bars take them. But hey, how about this? Pot shops have told us that they are mostly set up to accept digital IDs, and state agencies have been advised to accept. We know you have a lot of questions about this. You can find some answers under this story on 9news.com. Sometimes the holidays just bring out joy. Other times it's tears and backup dinner plans, but it is the thought that counts after all. Carrie shared this story of her first Thanksgiving as a newlywed 50 years ago. Quote, "My very first Thanksgiving as a very young newlywed started out by getting up and stepping on raw turkey parts strewn throughout our wee house. Turns out the dog and the cat had apparently worked together to tip over the tub that the bird was defrosting in on top of the fridge. The only stores that were open were 7-Eleven type of stores with frozen turkeys only, so they thawed that thing all day, ate dinner around 10 o'clock that night. Funny now, but oh, so many tears were shed." We're going to share more of your holiday fail favorites, so keep them coming. Use the hashtag #HeyNext or send them over to next@9news.com. So now that Thanksgiving has passed, it is officially okay to start talking about Christmas, which is good because, you know, we're kicking off the holiday season with the 9 News Light the Lights ceremony. Here's a live look at Civic Center Park where the celebration's happening right after next. So this is our reminder to you, stick around. It all starts at 6:30. And Light the Lights is one of our holiday traditions. Other families shop for Black Friday, and some families start their search for the perfect Christmas tree. Now, you can't just go and cut down whatever tree you want here in Colorado. There are rules of where you can go, so just go to the next Facebook page to see where areas allow you to channel your inner Griswold and cut down your own Christmas tree. Sometimes a fail can be transformed into a new holiday tradition with the help of a creative father-in-law. There's no question, mental health help in America needs some work.
You know, we were embarrassingly dysfunctional. We were no better or no worse. We're all ridiculous in how we're approaching it.
Florida found a way to get people more help. Colorado's interested, but money is creating a roadblock. Some Coloradans are paying a visit to Florida to learn from them. That's because parts of that state are doing a better job of keeping people with mental health illnesses out of jail. But how Colorado gets involved in the business of changing the criminal justice system isn't quite the same. Here's our Anschutz Roy.
It's been 2 decades in the making in Miami-Dade County. The number of people who keep getting in trouble and showing up in jail dropped from 72% to 20%. They cut down their jail population so much they closed one of them and started saving $12 million a year. But it was only after a major realization.
You know, we were embarrassingly dysfunctional. We were no better or no worse. We're all ridiculous in how we're approaching it.
So Judge Steve Leifman set up a program for both before and after a person gets arrested, giving them multiple chances to get mental health help instead of going to jail.
Reduce burden on the courts and the sheriff's offices.
Coloradans, including Mental Health Colorado, are interested in a similar program. So why haven't we seen it? Well, it has to do with money.
I've been advocating for something like the Miami model, and nobody has picked that up just yet.
It's not really how the state does business because of the balanced budget requirement, which makes it harder for lawmakers to start spending money on a program that promises to save lots of money over lots of time, but not necessarily in the same fiscal year. That's when they get creative and start making changes at a city and county level. And next month, people from Denver will be visiting Florida to study their program. So some of those changes include local police departments setting up their own crisis response team. We've talked about that before. And the district attorney in Denver has set up a diversion program in some cases as well. All of that sounds great, but one of the big issues is just making sure Colorado even has enough resources to meet that demand for everybody who's going to reach out for that help.
And it's all an issue over money because you don't know when those savings might start.
Exactly.
But has this helped with recidivism in Florida
Yes,
at all?
so it did a lot, but not for everybody, which is kind of the general theme with these kind of issues. But when we're talking about the people who keep showing up in jail over and over again, the same people. And Miami-Dade County found some really interesting numbers. I'm just going to look at my notes here. It says 97 people were arrested 2,200 times in a 5-year period, and that cost taxpayers around $14.5 million. It was one of the first times I had personally seen those numbers on recidivism, and I think it tells a very telling story about what the problem is.
It's costly. Anschutz Roy, thank you. Double duty today.
Double duty.
Good to see you.
Happy
again.
holidays.
Happy holidays. Thank you, Anschutz. Well, teen violence has plagued Denver this year. At least 9 kids have lost their lives. 9 families who will be missing someone during the holidays. A man in Denver wanted to do something about that, so he's stepping in to help those families and people in their neighborhood who see the same kind of violence.
Some of these moms have had to miss work because of unfortunate circumstances. So maybe money's a little tight. So we want to make sure we step in and get some good gifts to the kids and some stuff that they'll really, really like. Christmas is a time that, I think everybody should be de-stressed and be able just to enjoy the meaning of the holiday and family. And this is just one part of that. And we're hoping to just take some of that burden off of parents.
Jason McBride's a local activist. He's held this drive for the last 5 years. Last year, he collected gifts for 600 kids, and this year he is aiming for 1,000. A lot of people in Colorado have big hearts.
I think it's a lot of good news that despite this weather and people's travel plans during the holidays, we're going to make sure every one of our clients gets the meals they need.
A special take on good news in Thornton. A golden crust turned flaming disaster. Let this casserole be a reminder. It's the thought that counts. Next. Here's a read recommended by our next producer, Erica. It is the story behind the 30-foot-tall concrete cowboy standing at Federal Boulevard and 56th. So Denverite reporter and generally great dude David Sachs looks into the reason the Pueblo artist John Sutton built the massive cowboy in Adams County in the first place, how it became a landmark at the entrance of a mobile home and RV park, and the activity the unnamed cowboy has survived living right off of one of the main thoroughfares in the Denver metro area. You'll find a link to that story right now on the next Facebook page. Final touches on a sweet side dish turned into a flaming failure, but don't forget it's the thought that counts after all. Brittany shared this photo with us of her mom from Thanksgiving last year. She says this was 0 hour, just minutes before sitting down to dinner last Thanksgiving. Mom was just putting the marshmallows on the sweet potato casserole for a nice golden topping. We popped them in the oven, and after getting everything else to the table, we discovered that they were in the oven, well, maybe just a bit too long. Flames ablaze as we pulled them out and put out the fire. And we've got another one. Peter's story is a good reminder to make sure that you clean out the oven. So here's his story. Back around 2010, David's at his girlfriend's house cooking Thanksgiving. All started off great. Bird came out of the oven perfect. Carved all the meat off and put the carcass back in the oven for some more counter space. So the next day, they left town. They came back a week later, fired up the oven for pizza or something. A nasty smell filled the house as a week-old turkey carcass kept a-cooking. A wise tip from one next viewer's in-laws turned her holiday fail into a Colorado-themed dessert tradition. And you know what we do here on Fridays? It's your good news. That's next. An effort to impress the in-laws came crumbling apart. But fortunately for Lexi, her in-laws were the first to remind her that it is the thought that counts. This is my first year married, she says, and Thanksgiving with my new in-laws. I made a cinnamon bundt cake that crumpled out into a bunch of lumps. My father-in-law said all we need to do is put a new spin on it. Now he calls it Rocky Mountain bundt cake. Crisis turned new tradition. Thanksgiving has passed, but you know that means Christmas is coming up quickly here. So tell us about your Christmas crisis stories. Email them to next@9news.com or use the hashtag #HeyNext. A lot of people struggled through this snowy holiday week, but one group still found something that made them smile as they delivered meals to people in need in Thornton.
My name is Amy Daly and I work for an organization called Project Angel Heart. My good news today is that despite ice, cold, and snow, around 1,200 people in the Denver metro area and Colorado Springs are getting deliveries of medically tailored meals this weekend. You take this for me?
Oh yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Have a good weekend. So Project Angel Heart, every weekend we deliver a week's worth of medically tailored meals to people who are living with all kinds of life-threatening illnesses. People who get Project Angel Heart meals get them free of charge, and that's because of community members who not only volunteer to drive in terrible weather like this, but also to help prepare meals. So during this week of Thanksgiving, we're especially grateful for everyone's involvement, for all the people who care about people who are sick and care about making sure that they have the nutrition that they need. Hi. Thank you. Sure thing. The weather's been pretty terrible this week, yeah. And it's the perfect storm because it's also a holiday week, which means that a lot of our volunteers are already traveling for the week. On top of that, this weather didn't make it easy for a lot of our volunteers to get out, deliver meals, help out in the kitchen. So we're just really glad that we have amazingly dedicated volunteers. Those who could showed up this week and to make sure that every client got the meals that they needed.
Good news right there. Hope you all enjoyed the holiday. Just a few minutes from now, the Christmas party begins. Amelia Earhart, Mark Kobrick going to be out there to light the lights at Civic Center Park for 9 News Light the Light celebration. Stick around. It starts right after our show here. Alex Zuccarelli writes in, says, love the retro tie clip on Steve tonight. They told me this was new.